Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Amy. So in today's video, I am going to share with you 8 of my favorite books that I have read in 2020. So let's get started. So this is the book The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat by Oliver Sacks. I think this is the most shocking yet interesting book that I have read in my life. It is basically a collection of different strange cases of patients that Dr. Sacks has encountered in his life. Beautifully recorded and displayed to the readers. So it is a book about psychology and neuroscience. There was, I think one of the cases that most attracted me was a case with the so-called Korsakoff syndrome, which afflicted a man, a 49-year-old man called Jimmy. So basically, Jimmy's ability to remember and form new memory was cut off in 1945. So he could perfectly remember his childhood and everything happened during his childhood. But at the age of 25, basically his memory stopped. So he could not recall anything between when he was 25 years old and now that he is 49 years old. Now, what I like about this book is not just the strangeness of the cases that were present in it, but the sort of questions that Sacks asks and brings out from each of the cases. So, for example, in this case, Sacks asked, could it be still considered a life if memory was not present? Isn't life just made up of different memories from different stages? We don't usually think about these questions, but they're really essential and fundamental to us as human beings, I think. So I think it's worthy asking ourselves these questions and reflecting upon them. So although this is a book about abnormality, I think by examining abnormality, we actually learn a lot about normality. By examining these patients with different sorts of disorders, which we think are totally unrelated to us, we actually learn a lot about ourselves. So I think this is the interesting part of this book. I would recommend it to people who are truly interested in psychology and neuroscience, and people who have some sort of basis in psychology, because this is quite heavy. There are quite a lot of terminologies that are specific to psychology and neuroscience. So, but this is definitely accessible to everyone. Okay, and this is the Lucifer Effect by Philip Zimbardo. I think this is a fascinating book for anyone who would like to know more about the dark side of human nature. This was written after a classic psychological experiment known as the Stanford prison experiments, where we see normal Stanford students behaving in an extremely aggressive and cruel way when treating their peers. So the major conclusion from this experiment and this book is that normal people could be made to behave in an evil way, not under just a very cruel circumstance or environment. So basically, Zimbardo is bringing out a third factor that affects human behavior. So besides our disposition and the environment, the system could also affect our behavior, be it a political system, a social system, a religious system, etc., etc. So he is basically highlighting the importance of the systematic factors in guiding human behavior. He also has made a great TED Talk talking about the psychology of evil, so if you're interested, you can go and watch that. This is a pretty heavy book. It's very long, and basically the whole first part of it is a very deep and profound narration of the Stanford Prison Experiment day by day. So I would recommend, if you think that you are already very familiar with the experiment itself and do not need any deeper information, you can directly jump to the second part where more analysis, explanations are present. Okay, this is The Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. It's, I think, an introductory book to psychology and to, I guess, human management, sort of. It's very interesting, very practical, not too long. I literally spent like 2 weeks in finishing it. It's very easily accessible, comprehensible, and it covers a lot of topic, from like human relationships to controlling temperament to psychological disorders such as depression, and already within the topic of human relationships, it covers a lot of relationships like parent-children, romantic relationships, employers, employees, teachers and students, etc., etc. There are also a lot of examples and true stories for the author to back up his views and arguments. And the main, I think, kind of argument in this book is how emotional intelligence can matter more than IQ, and what are the places in our lives that emotional intelligence can come into play. And I think one of the biggest points that I have taken away from this is the concept that is called flow. So flow is a state where you become so absorbed in the task that you do, almost time and space are faded away. So this is a very healthy mental state to be in when working and studying, and this kind of state has been applied largely to the educational system. I think this is very true to life because I sometimes experience this too, and it's a very good state to be in if you want high productivity. So I think if you are interested in psychology but is not ready for kind of heavier books like Oliver Sacks, then this is a very good introductory book. And I think everyone should read it anyway, because I think this is just the basis of an emotionally intelligent life, which everyone should have a go at. It should be very accessible to everyone. Okay, Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but so she is a Nigerian writer. One of my tutors introduced me to this book. The author also has a great TED Talk called The Danger of a Single Story, which is a very well thought and deep speech on the human tendency to focus solely on one single story. The novel is very easy to read and comprehensible. It basically narrates the story of a Nigerian woman trying to survive in the American society and the process of her finding a new love. The story provides great insights into global issues like feminism, racism, gender inequality, societal inequality, but also romantic themes like love and breakups. Perfume by Patrick Saskind. This was our summer reading. The story was very weird, but I like it so much. I think the book, or rather the protagonist, provides so many areas for me to analyze psychologically. So it was a really exciting journey of psychological analysis of the mentality of the protagonist. The book also poses questions to ask what it really means to be a human being, which is fascinating. As you can see, it's not too long and definitely accessible. If you do not want to read the whole book but would like to know the story, there is the film version, which I think is very well made. Okay, here we have Persepolis, very heavy book. So this is, I think, one of the best well-known graphic novels by Marjane Satrapi. She is a very well-known graphic artist, and basically this novel is a narration of her life, her difficult times in Iran due to the political tensions that were going on. So the author experienced a lot of downturns in her life when she transferred to Vienna, but learned quite a lot of important life lessons, which I think are important to us as well. Overall, I would say the graphics are not great, but in a way they facilitate the understanding of the story, so I think it's pretty good. Okay, If This Is a Man by Levi. This is another classic that I have reviewed this year. So Levi is a chemist who has spent a few years in the concentration camp during the Second World War. And a lot of people say this book is not merely a narration of the things that happened in the concentration camp. It's more a study on human nature. So some parts of the book is very touching, but I think it really effectively reveals the darkest side of human nature and the weakest side of human nature as well. And what is interesting is the observations about human beings made in this book were later on analyzed by Phyllis Zimbardo in the Lucifer Effect. And lastly, returning to our classic Shakespeare. So Othello is one of the Shakespearean tragedies that we have read this year during class. As usual, the story is very interesting, very fascinating, and again, Shakespeare made a lot of interesting observations about human beings. But I have to say that the character that I enjoyed most was not Othello, the protagonist. It was the antagonist, Iago. which I think is the most intelligent antagonist in all of Shakespearean tragedies. He is such an astute man who is able to manipulate people, situation, language to achieve his own goals. The characterization of Iago is very well shaped throughout the entire play. Obviously, every Shakespearean work is difficult to read, but definitely they offer important and I think appealing messages on human nature, human beings, relationships, power, society. They just reveal so much. So if you are interested and you have time and you have that heart to pursue a deeper understanding of all the sorts of social constructs, then definitely have a go for it. Okay, so that is pretty much my reading in 2020. I think reading is a really important thing in our life. No matter what type of book you read, just read some, because our life in today's society is too fastly paced, so that a lot of times we don't really have time to sit down and enjoy the different worlds of people that there could be, that are offered in the different types of books. So I think that's a really important thing to do. Be consistent and find something you like, right? If a person who's not interested in psychology at all was to read Oliver Sacks, then I can imagine how difficult it is for him to keep this interest. So find something you like, explore the different options you have, and you will find a book that really influences your life. I think that's the main message from me today. Okay, that's it for today. Feel free to leave any comments below and subscribe if you like. Thank you.